Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to be going deep on some pretty wild theories about ancient civilizations and maybe even a little glimpse into the future. So the source material for this deep dive is a couple of YouTube videos from Robert Edward Grant's channel. And in these videos, he's talking about an upcoming trip to Peru with another researcher named Matt LeCroix. Now, I know what you're thinking, YouTube videos. But trust me, this is not your average internet rabbit hole. We're talking about megalithic structures, ancient knowledge, maybe even silicon-based DNA.
Yeah.
Get ready to have your mind blown.
You got that right.
So to kick things off, who is this Robert Edward Grant guy? And what's so special about this Peru trip?
Well, Robert Edward Grant is this researcher, and he's really into ancient civilization, sacred geometry, all those kind of mysteries about human history. He's basically convinced that there was this, lost global culture way back when, and he sees evidence of it all over the place, in the similarities between ancient sites around the world.
Okay, so not your typical historian.
Yeah.
And he's going to Peru to kind of dig up more of these connections.
Yeah, exactly. He and Matt LeCroix, the other researcher who's going with him, they believe that Peru holds a key to understanding this ancient knowledge. They're especially interested in places like Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman, those places with the incredible stonework.
You mentioned megalithic structures earlier. What exactly makes them so special? And why are they so important to this research?
Megalithic structures are, well, they're built with these massive stones, right? And they're often fitted together with crazy precision. And what's really fascinating is that you find these structures all over the globe. We're talking Peru, Egypt, even Turkey. The skill and knowledge it must have taken to build those things is just mind-boggling. And for Grant, it really suggests some kind of connection between all these cultures that might seem totally unrelated at first.
Like a global fingerprint, right? Like something left behind by this lost civilization.
Exactly. And one of the most interesting connections they're looking into is between a site in Peru called Baño de la Yusta, which means spring of the Yusta, and a relief that was found all the way over in Turkey near Lake Van.
Peru and Turkey? That's a pretty big distance. What's the link?
Well, the Baño de la Yusta is this natural spring that flows over a step pyramid structure. And there's this very similar symbol carved into this relief in Turkey. It's called the Kibir relief. They both show this kind of balance symbol could represent a shared understanding of how nature works,
A shared symbol across continents. That's pretty wild. In the videos, they also talk about these false doorways that are found in some of these ancient structures. What are those all about?
Yeah, the false doorways, like the one at Yapa Inca near Ollantaytambo, they're carved into the stone, but they don't actually lead anywhere. It's a real head-scratcher.
So are they just decorations?
Well, some researchers think they might have been symbolic, maybe representing portals to another dimension or a connection to something beyond our world. Grant even suggests there might be a link to the stars, specifically the constellation Orion.
Orion? Hold on. The constellation. What does that have to do with the ancient structures?
I know, right? Sounds crazy, but Orion seems to be a theme in a lot of ancient cultures. Grant actually says there are Orion correlations in sites all over the world. He points to Ollantaytambo, the Clava cairns in Scotland, and even this dolmen. It's a megalithic tomb in Florianopolis, Brazil. Says it was built in the shape of the constellation.
All right, so we've got these ancient structures, possible global connections, and now we're throwing Orion into the mix. Is there a grand theory that ties all this together?
Well, Grant and LeCroix, they believe that all these clues point to civilizations rising and falling in cycles throughout history. They think that major events, maybe even global catastrophes, wiped out advanced knowledge, forcing humanity to start over again and again. And they point to evidence ice cores and the Younger Dryas event. That was this period of sudden climate change that happened 12,000 years ago.
So they're saying that history isn't just a straight line of progress, but more like a series of cycles.
That's the idea, yeah. And they think we might be approaching another one of these cycles right now, potentially triggered by powerful coronal mass ejections from the sun. CMEs.
CMEs. Those are those solar flares we hear about sometimes, the things that mess with satellites and stuff.
Right, but those are small-scale events. The CMEs Grant's talking about are way more powerful. They could cause, widespread destruction, earthquakes, tsunamis, fires, you name it.
Okay, now I'm getting a little nervous. Are they saying we're headed for a global catastrophe?
Well, they do see some warning signs, like the increase in solar activity and the Earth's magnetic field shifting. But they also believe that we might have an advantage our ancestors didn't. Technology.
So, are we going to build some kind of high-tech Noah's Ark to escape the apocalypse?
Not quite. They specifically mention magnetic technology, maybe inspired by Nikola Tesla's work as a potential shield against these CMEs.
Whoa. Harnessing the power of magnetism to protect us from the sun. Sounds like science fiction.
It might sound a little out there, but these researchers are thinking outside the box, right? Seeing patterns that others might miss.
I'm definitely starting to see why they call this a deep dive.
Hey.
It feels like we're going down a rabbit hole of interconnected ideas and mysteries. So where do we go from here?
Well, you're not going to believe this, but we're about to get into Grant's theory about silicon-based DNA. He calls it Psi plus DNA.
Wait, silicon-based life, like living computer chips or something.
We're about to find out. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I am all ears. Let's dive in. Okay, silicon-based DNA. This is like next level stuff. So, what got Grant interested in this whole Psi plus DNA thing in the first place?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because his background isn't just biology or genetics. He spent years, like, really diving into sacred geometry, especially the work of this scientist named Walter Russell.
Okay, hold up a sec. Sacred geometry. Who's Walter Russell?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Like, for those of us who aren't, experts in this stuff,
Right.
can you kind of break it down?
Yeah, for sure. So Walter Russell, he was this scientist, artist, kind of philosopher guy. He came up with this whole system of understanding the universe based on geometric patterns and principles. He believed that, like, everything from the tiniest atom to the biggest galaxy, it's all built on these fundamental geometric shapes.
So, like squares and circles, triangles, that kind of thing.
Yep, exactly.
And Grant sees a connection between these shapes and ancient civilizations.
Yeah. He believes these ancient cultures, they really understood these geometric principles, and they incorporated them into their art, architecture, even their understanding of, like, the cosmos.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that ties into the ancient civilization stuff. But where did DNA fit in?
So Graham was at Russell's University studying all this stuff, and he started thinking about the elements, like, the periodic table. He even developed his own version of the periodic table, which he calls the periodic wave of elements. Basically suggests that all the elements are connected in this, like, wave-like pattern, almost like music.
A musical periodic table. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Still not seeing how we get from musical elements to silicon DNA, though.
Well, he was looking at silicon, the element we use to make computer chips and stuff, and he realized that it actually shares some chemical properties with carbon. And, carbon is what our DNA is based on.
So he thought, hey, maybe silicon could be the backbone of a totally different kind of DNA.
Exactly. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but he actually started using AI to model this hypothetical silicon-based DNA.
Wait, AI? Like ChatGPT, the thing that writes poems and stuff?
Yeah, ChatGPT.
That can model DNA too.
It's a pretty amazing tool. Grant used it to see if, like, a DNA structure with silicon instead of carbon could actually work, Like, could it hold together? Could it function?
So what did it find? Could silicon actually replace carbon?
At first, it didn't look good. The models were showing that just swapping out carbon for, like, regular silicon wouldn't work. It was too unstable.
So dead end.
No, not quite. Grant had this, like, breakthrough moment. He realized that if you used a specific type of silicon ion, one with a positive charge, it could actually create a stable structure. It works through what's called ionic bonding. Basically, it's like magnetic attraction.
So it wasn't just about silicon versus carbon. He had to use a special kind of silicon and factor in these ionic bonds.
Exactly. Like a puzzle, figuring out how all the pieces fit together. He also had to incorporate sulfur and phosphorus, which he believes are like higher octave versions of oxygen and nitrogen, which are already in our DNA.
Hold on. Higher octaves? Like in music, what does that even mean for elements?
Right. Remember that musical periodic table he came up with?
Right.
Well, he believes that elements can exist in these, like, higher octave forms with different properties. It's complicated, but basically he used these higher octave elements to create a more stable silicon-based DNA structure.
Wow. Okay, so what happened when he plugged all of this into the AI model? Did it actually work?
It did, and the results were pretty astonishing. The AI simulations showed that this Psi plus DNA, it wasn't just stable, it was incredibly tough.
Tough? Like, how tough are we talking?
Like, it could handle extreme conditions that would completely destroy our regular DNA. We're talking scorching temperatures, radiation, even super acidic or basic environments. It's also resistant to hydrolysis, which is this process that breaks down regular DNA in water.
So it's like super DNA. What does that mean? Like, what are the implications of DNA that durable?
Well, think about it. Life forms with this Psi plus DNA could potentially survive, even thrive, in environments that would be totally hostile to us. They wouldn't need water or oxygen, for example.
So are we talking about, like, aliens here?
That's one possibility. Grant actually suggests that places like Saturn's moon Titan, which has a methane atmosphere, could potentially have life forms with Psi plus DNA.
Whoa. Okay, my mind is officially blown. Again. But what about here on Earth? Could psi plus DNA have anything to do with us? Especially with all this talk about potential CMEs and all that.
That's where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Grant believes that activating this psi plus DNA within ourselves might be the key to, weathering those storms, so to speak. He sees it as like a natural step in human evolution.
Wait, so you're saying that we might have this hidden potential within us, this silicon-based DNA, just waiting to be activated?
That's the idea. And he even has a name for this potential future human. Homo sanctus luminus?
Homo sanctus luminus. It sounds like something out of a myth. What would these, Homo sanctus luminus folks be like?
He describes them as being more resilient, more adaptable, and potentially even having, enhanced intelligence and longer lifespans.
Whoa, hold on. So we could potentially live longer and be smarter. That sounds kind of amazing. But how would we even activate this psi plus DNA? Is there a special diet or some kind of gene therapy?
Well, this is where Grant's ideas get a little more, shall we say, unconventional. He believes that consciousness plays a crucial role. He says that our beliefs, our intentions, even our thoughts can actually influence reality, including our DNA.
Wait, what? Are you saying that what we believe can affect our genes? That's a pretty big claim.
I know, right? It's pretty wild. But think about things like the placebo effect, where people experience real physical changes just because they believe they're receiving treatment. Grant argues that ancient civilizations understood this connection between consciousness and reality, and that we're only now beginning to rediscover it.
So it's not just about our genes, but also about the power of our minds to shape our own evolution.
Yeah, exactly. He sees it as a process of remembering who we truly are and tapping into a potential that's already within us.
Okay, this is all starting to connect. Ancient knowledge, these potential global shifts, the power of our minds, it's all part of the same story.
Right. And Grant believes that by shifting our consciousness, by adopting a more positive and loving worldview, we can unlock this hidden potential and become more than we ever thought possible.
Wow. I need a minute to process all this. It's a lot to take in. But I got to ask, is Grant alone in these theories? Are there other scientists who, agree with him?
Well, Grant's work is definitely pushing the boundaries of mainstream science,
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's completely out there. He's constantly researching, experimenting, refining his ideas, and he's totally open to collaboration. He welcomes any kind of critique or feedback.
So he's not saying he has all the answers. He's just presenting a new way of thinking, a new possibility.
Exactly. And even if you don't buy into every single one of his theories, there's no denying that they're thought-provoking, right? They make you think outside the box.
I think that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about learning new facts. It's about questioning what we think we know, exploring new ideas, realizing how much potential we actually have.
And that's just what we've covered so far. We still have more to unpack as we delve deeper into Grant's research.
Oh man, I am ready for more. This is getting more and more interesting. Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of wrap up this deep dive into Robert Edward Grant's research. I'm still processing everything we talked about, ancient civilizations, silicon-based life, the power of consciousness. It's a lot.
Yeah, it really makes you kind of rethink everything.
So there's one question that's been bugging me this whole time. Grant talks about these cycles, right? Civilizations rising and falling throughout history. If these cycles are real, and we're on the edge of another one, what's that mean for us? How do we even prepare for that?
That's the big question, right? The million-dollar question. Grant says these cycles, they aren't just random. They're driven by these bigger forces like the Earth's magnetic field shifting, the increase in solar activity.
It's not just about us. It's about the whole planet, the whole cosmos.
Right, exactly. And if we can kind of understand these cycles, see the patterns, maybe we can kind of figure out what challenges are coming and adapt.
But some of those challenges sound pretty scary, CMEs, global catastrophes, the end of civilization as we know it. It's hard to imagine how we could possibly prepare for something that big.
It's definitely a lot to think about, but Grant, he really emphasizes being resilient, both individually and as a society. If we become more self-sufficient, build strong communities, and are open to new tech, we have a better chance of getting through it.
So it's not about hiding in bunkers or going to Mars. It's about being adaptable, resourceful, right here on Earth.
Yeah, that's a big part of his research. He also talks a lot about understanding and using the power of our minds, of consciousness. Like, if we can shift from fear and lack to, love and abundance, we can actually affect how these cycles play out.
Where are you saying our thoughts and beliefs can actually change what happens on a global scale?
Sounds crazy, but quantum physics is showing us that consciousness actually does play a role in shaping reality.
Hmm.
It's all connected. Grant believes that if we can all raise our consciousness, we can create a more positive, harmonious future.
So it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving,
Yeah.
even with all the challenges.
That's what he's saying. And this is where the Psi plus DNA stuff comes in. He thinks activating that dormant potential, the silicon-based DNA, could make us more resilient, adaptable, even more connected to each other.
It's not just physical survival, it's about evolving, becoming more conscious, more connected.
Exactly. And according to Grant, that's already happening. He sees more and more people kind of waking up to their spiritual nature, looking for meaning beyond just material stuff.
So even with all the crazy stuff happening in the world, there's still hope.
Absolutely. Grant's convinced that we're not just like victims of fate. We have the power to choose, to create, to evolve. And it starts with each of us.
So for everyone listening, what really stood out to you? What are you going to explore more? And what does all of this mean for you, your own life, the choices you make, the future you want?
And until next time, keep diving.